if you don't get along with, say, mom or dad, you will find mom or dad out there no matter what. There's no escape from whatever you get stimulated by. But there is a way out. There's no escape, but there's a way out. And the way out is up through, self-understanding and making the spiritual part of your life practical.
Welcome back to another exciting episode of Enthusiastically Spiritual. I'm your host, Teresa.
And I'm Tom.
And it's another monthly episode with TNT SpiritWorks and What's Up Spiritually?
What's up spiritually?
So here we are in June, and obviously people are going to be listening to this farther out than June, but we're really inspired to share some good stuff today.
Yeah. Well, the key word that I'm really working with is orbit. And what I'd like to share is what orbit means to me.
Please do, Tom.
Okay. Well, one of the things that comes to mind for me is that I've noticed as I've regrouped myself spiritually and that I sort of reflect upon what's going on in my life, there's certain types of people and there's certain people that seem to orbit around me. And when I say types of people, I guess styles and levels of consciousness could be a fancy way of saying it, but certain people of like mind, you might say. And these folks just kind of either keep showing up in one form or another. So that's one thing that occurs to me. And what also comes to mind is this idea of reincarnation. So many people talk about the possibility that, we return for multiple life experiences. And recently I was listening to some YouTube videos of folks that were having near-death experiences. And a few of them said, when they had those near-death experiences, and they were, a couple things are pretty similar, that, we all have we're energy, and we all have a plan or a purpose and a unique thrust, and that we have spiritual helpers or guides. And just about every one of them talks about meeting their spiritual guides and how those guides feel like very loving and very supportive, non-judgmental, but just help them evaluate. And they go through some sort of past life. They review their lifetime, with their spirit guides. That's another constant theme. And many who come back from these near-death experiences say that, and then they became aware, although they didn't believe in reincarnation at first, they became aware of other lifetimes and kind of a pattern of their existence. And so with all that up front, what occurs to me is that as souls, we kind of orbit around each other, for what we've come to learn. And there are affinities. And affinity is like, I just like that person. Or there's a contract there for the soul that they actually, I came to work with someone, certainly with my spiritual helpers on the other side, they have a contract with me to, help me learn and grow in the areas that they've mastered that we often talk about. And of course, you can develop a two-way communication with them, and you can get insight from them, pretty regularly, like at the speed of light, no matter, as long as you're relaxed and you're willing to listen, they can share lots of great stuff. So what's the whole point of that? Well,
what is the point, Tom?
The whole point is, we're going to continually orbit around situations and people until we learn from those experiences, and we can move on. We can wait until we met. And I would ask you, how does it seem to you, Teresa, when you feel like you've learned from an experience? What's the how does that look like for you?
Well, first off, I'll go back and say that I'm a true believer of reincarnation. And for myself, I've had many times where past lives have shown up. And why they've shown up, people have asked me, and people have even said to me, clients and stuff, I'd love to find out how to tap into that. And the answer that I have about reincarnation and understanding that is the fact that some of those lives showed up for myself because I'm working on healing those layers this lifetime. And what Tom is mentioning about people orbiting around us, that has happened also this lifetime with people that I've had relationships with, had falling out with. Different times I've noticed that this familiarity of either, like Tom is saying, good or bad, like, oh, like repel, oh, I don't like that person because who knows what we did in the past life, or my God, this is a soul connection and I love you and I'm so glad we're back together. Like Tom and I are this lifetime. So, what was the question you asked?
I think you answered it.
Oh, I answered it. Awesome. Okay, so yeah, so that's what I really want to say about reincarnation because it's come up so many times, and it's interesting the times it has come up for myself because it's been like layers of time frame of like I need to know this about my past life, and now I'm working with that aspect, and like you said, the people too that come around.
Yeah. So, in this idea of orbiting, what I've
Mhm.
noticed is that if it's not that same person that keeps sort of showing up in my environment, it's somebody with a very similar energy.
Mm.
And I find similar challenges. And so, even to the point like if you don't get along with, say, mom or dad, you will find mom or dad out there no matter what. There's no escape from whatever you get stimulated by. But there is a way out. There's no escape, but there's a way out. And the way out is up through, self-understanding and making the spiritual part of your life practical. So, this word spiritual growth, or this phrase, I should say, spiritual growth, is thrown out a lot. And often it occurs to me, like, what the heck does that mean? I
Mhm.
mean, what's the point of that? So the point is really just to experience ourselves and unfold those positive parts of us and have a chance to experience it and be in a place where we can really, I guess the feeling I'm getting as I'm asking that question from spirit is that, boy, it's just a chance to go deep and get involved, and it feels like fun. And as I often say when I'm talking to other folks and people like Teresa, like, we're enthusiastic about coming back here, about being involved. This is not some place we go, oh my God, I gotta go back. It's like, I want to get back. That was so much fun. I can learn these other things. And, I don't have all that intellectually organized, but I would leave it to you. And especially those folks who know how to work with your guidance or do some self meditation, is just ask yourself, what's the point? So that you can start seeing or feeling or understanding or getting that inner knowing about what some of those answers are for you. Because I'm just going to be able to share my perspective of my experience.
Yeah, so what I want to share about a couple things is
Yeah.
the spiritual journey or spiritual awakening. I guess I'll start with the journey part. Is I myself personally believe that as soon as we get back and we pop out of the womb, we're on our spiritual journey. And it can look like different ways for different people. The awakening, the reawakening, the remembering oftentimes happens later in life, depending upon where you're at. But I believe every person, no matter where they're at, is on their spiritual journey because they're here in a body, exploring life and doing all the things that we do while we're here. And I would love you to share the story about a person. We had a friend that passed on, and like within a day, he came and gave you a message about returning, that and how he was feeling about it.
I don't know who you're talking about.
Australia. Think of Australia.
Person who
Yeah.
passed on.
Hmm. Okay, so I'll tell the story.
Yeah.
So, well, you guys can see we do have a script here, that's for sure. So we had this gentleman we knew, and he went through cancer and he passed away. And he was living on the other side of the world. And like a day or two after he passed on, he actually showed up in Tom's aura. Tom was recognized that it was his energy that coming around, and he shared with Tom a message that he can't wait to come back. So that's what I wanted to share about the orbit and about, like, how excited we are to, and when we get in that spirit form and we're in the physical form, it's night and day, but we do a lot of work while we're here. And so he was so excited to get back. And I remember Tom saying to me, my God, he just passed like a day or two. He came to me and said this, and like, hey dude, have you, like enjoy the other side for a little while. But no, we're as souls, we are really excited to be back here, even though there's lots of things that goes on while we're here. You remember that now, Tom?
Yeah, vaguely.
Okay, I guess I remember these weird things and Tom doesn't. So
Yeah, I think I know who you're talking about.
yeah.
Yeah, and so we pass on, we get reorganized, and we come back into a physical body. If we so one of the things that I've noticed about looking at my past lives is, there's times where I've done some very interesting things. It seems like, and there's some times when I have done other things, and I think it's all part of the experience. And then one thing that really helps me and that I love to share with people is that I was tuning into my guidance one day, and I asked about levels of consciousness here, and up until then I'd never asked, and I just sort of had this intellectual idea that maybe there's 7 levels of consciousness or a few levels of consciousness and that kind of thing. And they said to me, there's thousands of levels of consciousness, like it's, and so it for me, being a visionary and thinking in pictures, it just gave me that perspective that, oh, okay, I'm not going to relate great with everybody. I mean, there's some people I'm going to have more time with than others, and that are more like-minded, and other souls are just learning and growing. So that allow them to have that opportunity. As I like to share too, as long as it doesn't interfere with my personal boundaries. We've talked about that in a couple episodes where, my rights begin where your rights end, and vice versa. So, what we're really looking for in society is just a balance between, so we all can learn and grow, and we can all learn to work with that beautiful soul nature and tune into that infinite wisdom that we all have. So, I don't even like saying words like infinite wisdom because it sounds so airy fairy kind of a thing. But it is true. If I bother to ask my guidance things, I get all kinds of insights. I just find I forget to ask, and that's when I think, we get on this automatic mode where we're just kind of moving around like robots or zombies instead of tuning into that inner wisdom. And how this relates is that, as we reincarnate, we gain a lot of experience and we gain a lot of wisdom. And even having a deja vu experience is, already seen as what that means in French. Deja vu is you're just recognizing energy patterns that you've dealt with before. It may be that soul, or just maybe something. Oh boy, I smell that coming because I've been through that one before. And what do you think about that?
Well, I know that when we first met, we had quite a few deja vu experiences
Oh,
that,
I forgot about those.
yeah. So I will tell you a little bit of just a little story about how we met. And we met at doing and having a spiritual experience at a conference over in Iowa, of all places in the world. And we were in this course and we were sitting across from one another doing this technique, this energetic technique. And as we moved seat to seat, we had this really kind of like an unveiling of, "Whoa, I recognize you." And he looked at me and, "Oh, I recognize you." And it got almost a comfortable feeling. But then I'm like, I know this guy. So we wrapped it up. What we were doing there, went outside, and I said, "Hey, nice to meet you again this lifetime." He goes, "You got that too?" I'm like, "Yes." And then we had all kinds of other deja vu experiences that really kind of stimulated past lives that we've had together. And one thing I want to say about past lives is that obviously they're a way to remember people, places, and things, but it's also just a time frame of who you were. So like who you are right now, listening to this podcast and or watching on YouTube, you're an accumulation of every single moment you've had this lifetime and however many other lifetimes you've been here. So when you think of yourself as, oh, I'm just, if you do think of yourself like this, sometimes, like, oh gosh, I'm not anything, I'm, worthless and I'm, nothing. Well, take a moment and take a deep breath and just tune into what have your soul essence and what you've experienced and what you've put together all the lifetimes. So like Tom started out with this, conversation about reincarnation. Yeah, I've done some really bad things. Yeah, I've done some really miraculous things. I've and everything in between, and so have you. If you've been back here before, because some souls are new souls on the planet, but more than likely you have been here before. And so, but just recognizing the essence of all of reincarnation and what you put together in all those lifetimes to be right here, right now, in this amazing moment on the planet.
I think that's a really key point is that if I take a moment to just relax, spiritually cleanse, which is just center myself again, take a moment to, or a few minutes to just tune in, and I ask myself questions, it's amazing what bubbles to the surface. And I've had a few experiences in my life where I'd be watching some historical event on television, and I'd say, what feels like really happened to me was this, that, and the other. And then I'll share that if somebody's around. And unbeknownst to me, a few minutes later, or like surprisingly, they start saying that. And now we found out that what really happened was this, that, and the other. And I go, oh my God, that's the
Mhm.
impression that I had. So um, it's always there for us, and I think like in working with spirit, when I do have a deja vu experience, I acknowledge it, accept it, and then I can check with my guidance, what's that about? Or uh, get my first impression and then check with my guidance to confirm.
Mm.
And that's a very helpful, technique, which is really why we share the tools and techniques that we do, through the programs that we do, and help people release limiting concepts, because sometimes those concepts get in the way. What you've been programmed with in your first 7 years, or as in our schools, or in the environment and the cultures that we're in. We have certain concepts, and some of those work for us. They keep us safe, they keep us together, they help us communicate better with others. And some of those are really not so helpful. So it's important to tune into your inner wisdom and really become your own best guru. It's great to share with like-minded people. I love to talk. I always love to say that one too, because Teresa may share something that stimulates learning in me, and I may share something that stimulates learning in her. And plus, it's just fun.
So, Tom, in looking at this, so what brought up reincarnation today?
Well, the idea that we orbit,
Gotcha.
and that that we decide to, it's a feeling I have that as a soul, I decide to orbit and to partake, and the opportunities and the areas that I can grow in within that particular planet, you might say, or within that solar system, or within that galaxy system. And, I believe there's a lot of description in the various religions of the world of heaven, and, God and source, and all those kinds of things. But I encourage people to tune into what really fits for them, and to see that there's truth in all things, but not one thing has all the truth. When I start arguing over my interpretation of orbit with Teresa, that's when we get off. That's when it becomes dogmatic, or, I'm trying to prove to you. Because when it comes to spiritual things, it's just my perspective and my growth. And one thing I've noticed is when I stay relaxed and allow people to have their perspective, that's a one way of saying it. Boy, life's a little easier. I don't have to, unless I'm dealing with something in the physical, I really need to have clear facts about this thing. When it comes to spiritual things, I allow people to have their own, is a little easier and more fulfilling. And, no one believes anything until it comes to them anyway. It's
Right.
until it becomes their idea,
Mhm.
or their picture, or their feeling. It's, they'll listen, but they won't necessarily acknowledge it or take it on board.
Yeah, and I guess for me, the reason why this came up today is the keyword of orbit for this month, but also the fact that this really gives you a bigger picture. So wherever you're at in your journey, if you have things going on, you're like, what is that? What's that all about? Like Tom mentioned, you can call in your guides and and just ask some questions and see if you get some answers. But just knowing that there's a bigger picture for your soul's journey, and what you put together for yourself as far as all the eons of times you've been here, and lifetimes. So I guess that's just what I want to say about being about orbit and the keyword of reincarnation. So
Yeah, I just get the feeling that spirit is so excited, and your spiritual helpers, your own angels, your own guides, are so excited to open up your eyes to the wisdom that you have within and to
Mm.
the solutions. Let me say that again, to solutions that are, and let me say it one more time, solutions that are available to you in your life. And you are the best guide for yourself. But boy, with those helpers who have that bigger picture and know what you came to be involved with, that really helps. I know that that really was a freeing feeling for me because there's lots of opportunity here. But what's the key thing, that's, you might say, I need to orbit around for a time being?
Awesome. Well, that feels good to me.
Hey, you better send them to our website.
Oh, hey, if you're interested in finding out more about how to work with Tom or Teresa, that's me, you can go to TNTSpiritWorks.com and you can check out a lot of things we offer on there. You can check out our events page. You can check out the podcast, which, well, you're on this podcast. You're already checking it out. You can check out and get on the early bird list and check out my new book, The Soul Quake Survival Guide, Reviving Your Connection to Spirit in Earth Shaking Times.
I think it's a very appropriate book for this particular
I do
period that we're
too.
going through.
I know I do too. It's kind of interesting. It's kind of eerie, right? No. So thank you all again for listening to another episode of Enthusiastically Spiritual. And again, thanks my partner Tom for coming on another month and sharing how amazing it is living life with spirit and making all this practical in some way or another.
And I just want to leave everybody with the thought and the feeling that, no matter what, it's all going to be okay. That's a
Mm,
message from Spirit for the day.
I love that. And remember that life is too short to not be enthusiastic about your
Your unique
unique
journey.
journey.